Grab a pint, grab your lineup. We're about to tap into fantasy. Welcome back to Tap Into Fantasy, the podcast with a professional fantasy mind and an amateur beer palate. I'm Lance Gandy. You can find me on X at LG_fantasy. Grab a beer and a helmet, because Week 6 fantasy football is a contact sport. 3 players are getting a one-way ticket to the fantasy graveyard, and we'll check if anyone should dodge the shovel. Thursday night's Eagles vs. Giants game gets dissected so you don't accidentally bench the wrong hero. I'll also give my love 'em or leave 'em picks, naming 2 players I'd bet on and 2 players I wouldn't trust to tie their own cleats for the weekend. Finally, I'm cracking a Westmalle Trappist Tripel and trying to figure out if it tastes more like heaven or a midweek apology to my liver. Let's hope this week's offering to the fantasy gods slow down the injury train. Raise your glasses, everyone. May the best drafts of your past be the worst of your future. Let's tap in. Okay, like I said, I'll be trying the Westmalle Trappist Triple Ale this episode. This beer is apparently called the mother of all triples because it was the first triple ever brewed in 1934 at their abbey. Ironically, that was also your mom's nickname in college. Yes, you. This baby's 9.5%. These monks want to get you drunk. Except we're sophisticated. We're doing a beer review. Let's get that straight. Okay, let's check out the good word on this beer from the Untappd Sitfluencers. Somewhere in the Untappd universe, a guy gave Guinness a 1-star review because it was too dark. Let's honor his bravery. Welcome to the Scrolls of the Booze Realm. Okay, this first review is from the actual brewery in Belgium. They give it 3.75 stars and simply say, "Thank you, Nando." He's thanking Nando, I'm guessing, for what's happening in the picture, which is 2 guys sexually licking the same beer glass. I can't tell if they're just in love and not afraid of showing it all in a public brewery, or playing a game of gay chicken and both of them are winning or losing, depending on how you look at it. However, there's a time and a place for this kind of debauchery, and that time is while drinking beer, so I fully support this. Okay, I'll give you another gem of a review later in the episode that you shouldn't miss. If this episode has already made you question your draft picks or your sanity, do the right thing. Like and subscribe so we can spiral together. This is a safe space. Alright, let's all show a little love of our own while we vigorously lick the bottle of this new beer. This is the opening draft, the segment I play the role of a professional beer reviewer and say smart things like white grapes are the leading motif while pretending to know what that means. If you've got a beer you love, hate, or can't describe without spiritual trauma, email it to tapintofantasy@gmail.com. It might earn a pour score and eternal glory on the big beer board on the website. So last week I tried the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Tart Cherry Wheat and put it 11th on the big beer board with a pour score of Bourbon Barrel Cherry Cough Syrup for adults. It was definitely drinkable, but the oaky bourbon barrel taste in a cherry wheat beer is just sort of off-putting, strange. Okay, well, let's get to drinking this world-renowned triple. I have my Cheers glass from the actual bar in Boston that inspired the show, so it's pretty cool. Alright, from some of the pictures on Untappd, it looks like this has a ton of head, so I'm going to be pouring this slowly. We'll see how it turns out. Alright, it wasn't my favorite pour I've ever done, but it'll do the trick and get you drunk. 9.5% ABV. Alright. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of head. It's a lot lighter than the double I've had the double before. So this is kind of more ambery color, but that head's just not going down. Just kind of sticking around there. I might have to do a Belgian dip on this one. So cheers, guys. That is a carbonated boozy one, my friends. Much head. Yeah, super carbonated, bready, dry, but a little bit of sweetness. It also has a little bit of spiciness to it. It tastes like a French bread loaf with some spice and bitterness. And like I said, it's 9.5% ABV, so the alcohol punches you in the face a little bit. In a good way, though. I like it. I like to be punched in the face like that. All right, well, I'll keep powering through this godly beer in the name of science and give you my pour score at the end. Okay, so let's talk about some players that have underwhelmed, to put it nicely, and how I see it going for the rest of the season. You can find my full rankings every week on tappintofantasy.com. I have week 5 rankings up in all scoring types, and I update them regularly before kickoff. So put on your gloves, folks, because we are exhuming another batch of fantasy failures. Welcome to the fantasy graveyard.
Enter the fantasy graveyard, where dreams go to die.
Kyler Murray slipping deeper into the darkness. He hasn't even been able to crack the top 15 QBs in any week. The very definition of mid so far. Like, he was QB 10 last year with 21 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions, 572 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns on the ground. He's headed for almost the exact same stat line so far this year, except he's getting sacked over 3 times a game, and he's throwing for 192 yards per game. Like, his average depth of target is the second lowest in the league at 6.15 yards. The only one worse is Aaron Rodgers, and he has the lowest ADOT of anyone in years. Like, this offense is broken. The offensive line has been banged up and ineffective, and they just lost a huge part of their run game and their blocking tight end, Tip Ryman. Even with James Conner and Trey Benson, the run game just wasn't working, but now they have Michael Carter leading the charge, who is on the scout team before this. That's what type of talent he is. Like, the offensive success rate was 6th last year at 46.91%. This year they're all the way down at 29th, 39.53%. Marvin Harrison Jr. just hasn't taken a step this year, and the other receivers are just jags. The only way this would get better for Kyler is if they let his little wheels loose and just called more design run plays. But, I mean, we've been saying that for years. He's running at basically the exact same clip as last year. He's more of a sell low candidate in my mind if some other owner somehow gives you top 12 talent or top 12 QB value for him still. He'll have a few spike games, but he'll mostly be a low to mid QB2 for the rest of the year. Travion Henderson is desperately clinging to fantasy relevance. We should have always known that it would be a slow burn with Henderson based on this coaching staff. Like, Vrabel, McDaniels, and rookies go together like hot sauce and genitals. Like, it'll burn for a long time. The burn should be close to subsiding as Antonio Gibson just went out for the year, leaving 2 viable backs, Ramondre Stevenson and Henderson. Ramondre has looked like the better runner so far, as Henderson has only been credited with 1 broken tackle and 32 attempts. Like, it looks to be about a 60-40 split in Stevenson's favor at the moment, but he still has those butterfingers. Like, if he continues fumbling away his opportunities, Henderson should be able to get more playing time. He's a buy in my mind right now, especially if the owner is just getting frustrated with his usage. Like, he won't be a hit right away, but could easily bust out later in the season. Jamison Williams is just fighting off the fantasy reaper. Currently, he's the wide receiver 57 in points per game on wide receiver 67 usage. He's just not usable at the moment because the Lions enjoy running the ball down opponents' throats and throwing the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, being fourth in target share on a run-first team equals fantasy disappointment. He'll have one or two blow-up games because he's fast and can break big ones, but that'll be in between games of wide receiver 50 or wide receiver 70. Like, he can safely be ignored until one of the big three get injured. Okay, well, I was wrong in thinking last week's Thursday game was going to be a stinky one, so maybe this week can also be a surprise. We have the Eagles versus Giants, with the Birds 7.5-point favorites. Let's break this puppy down.
Thursday Night Fantasy Breakdown. Every week, every player. Let's tap in.
Okay, we'll start with the Eagles. The vibes with this team are the worst I can remember for a team that's sitting pretty at 4-1. Like, Hurts has been solid but unspectacular at 20.7 points per game. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have been throwing shade on the offense, but this Giants team is a lovely get-right game to make everyone smiling and happy again. Like, they're 26th in EPA per play as a defense, and despite having a vaunted defensive line, are only 22nd in sack percentage. They've only allowed 16.5 points per game to QB so far, but that's mostly due to teams being up and running on them. So you're hoping they don't get too big of lead by halftime, but Hurt should be able to rack up points just fine in this one. So Saquon Barkley just hasn't had the magic this year. He's at 3.2 yards per carry. He's currently RB11 in points per game. I chalk that mostly up to the offensive line injuries and overall ineffectiveness in the run game, but he also just hasn't looked as explosive either. The Giants have allowed some big running back performances, so this could easily be his coming out party in 2025. Game script and a scary defensive line gave him only 6 carries last week, but against this team, that shouldn't be a problem. Like, expect the Eagles to give a heavy dose of Barkley to the Giants. So A.J. Brown, the enigma. The diva attitude this year, I think, has really hurt the offense. The effort just hasn't been there 100% of the time. What's crazy is that last year, he had 34.85% of the team's air yards. What do you think it's at this year? It's even higher at 36.88%. Like, he just hasn't been coming down with as many of them. He's at a 53% catch rate. It's impossible to know whether the Eagles are just going to grind out the win against the Giants, which they could easily do with like 18 passes, or try to nip this A.J. Brown problem in the bud by hyper-targeting him this game to get him going. My bet is a little of both, but I'll be ranking him outside my top 18 receivers this week. Meanwhile, Devontae Smith has had 6 less targets than Brown, but has turned that into 6 more catches and 78 more yards. He's just been better than Brown and has over a 30% target share in the red zone. I don't expect this to be a high-volume passing game on Thursday, though, so Smith will be ranked as a mid-wide receiver 3 this week. The Eagles have actually chalked up a few cool plays for Dallas Goedert in the red zone this year, and he has a team-high 4 receiving touchdowns even while missing a game. He's running way too hot on touchdowns. Like, you can't expect 1 per game going forward. He could be a sell-high candidate if someone wants to overpay. Like, I think he'll settle in as a fringe starter for the rest of the year he's the third option on a run-heavy team. Like, he should be fine this week, but I like Kyle Pitts and David Njoku better. So let's move on to the Giants and the Jackson Dart experience. So even with 3 turnovers and only 14 points last week, he was able to eke out 17.6 fantasy points. That's the power of the running QB. He's had 54 and 55 rushing yards in his 2 starts. So now he's down Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, so it could be rough. But I expect him to be able to have a few scrambles to stay somewhat viable in 2 QB leagues in this one. Like, the Eagles have allowed an above-average scramble rate on the year. Overall, the Eagles are 8th in EPA per play on defense. Dart hasn't faced a defense like this, and if the Eagles get up early, which I expect, they could easily choke this game out and just not let Dart on the field. Like, his ceiling's severely capped, so he's a low-end starter in 2 QB leagues only this week. So Cam Scatabo. I've heard people say Scataboo. That's disgusting to me. I'm not doing it until he comes out and says that's how it's pronounced. So I'm saying Scatabo. He's a fun dude to root for, though. Like, he plays extremely hard. He never gives up on a play. He invites contact almost a little too much. The upcoming schedule is just brutal. Like, 7 of the next 8 opponents are above average to elite run defenses. The Eagles have been just above average in that department, but Scatabo's only been able to manage 3.8 yards per carry up until now against relatively soft defenses. He now gets more competition in the backfield with Tyrone Tracy returning from injury, and he should eat into the snap share. This is a sell relatively high moment for Scatabo, in my opinion. The Giants are going to be down more often than not the rest of the fantasy regular season, so they'll be in passing mode, which could favor Tracy, or at least could be a 50-50. And this one, Scatabo is a borderline RB2, though. So little old Wan'Dale Robinson is the new wide receiver 1 on the Giants, and that's not good. He should see a bunch of targets in this one, but the Eagles have one of the best secondaries in the league. Like, Robinson has been much more efficient this year than really any year of his career, but a lot of that was the bombs he caught against the fake Cowboys defense. There's nothing fake about this Eagles defense, so this may be like a Wan'Dale short A-dot special. He's a decent flex in PPR leagues, but this offense is projected for a brutal 16.5 points this game. Like, with that kind of line, you shouldn't even think about another receiver. But the next men up are Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins. So Theo Johnson is a name to know in the coming weeks. He tied Robinson for the most targets on the team last week and has a ridiculous 37.5% target share in the red zone this season. The Eagles are one of the best defenses against tight ends this year, so this isn't the game to throw him out there, but he'll have more games like the 18.3 points he had last week. Stash him on your bench. All right, we're going to get into Love 'em or Leave 'em next, but first, a quick break. This episode is powered by Dubby Energy. It's my go-to for a clean boost with zero crash and zero jitters, whether I'm grinding out drafts or just need that mid-afternoon push. No junk, no guilt, just focus. Hit the link in the description and use promo code TAPINTOFANTASY for 10% off. Dubby brings the energy. You bring the winning picks. Okay, now let's talk about the players I'm hyping up and fading for the Week 6 slate. I'm going to be giving you 2 players that should boom and 2 players that should bust for every position, except 1 each for tight end for the Sunday and Monday games. This is Love 'em or Leave 'em.
It's Love 'em or Leave 'em, darling. Your fantasy lineup just got a little sexier.
All right, let's kick things off at quarterback, where Geno Smith has been serving up turnovers like he's auditioning for a bakery. 9 interceptions in 5 games is a choice. Like, sure, some of it's on that offensive line that blocks like they're allergic to contact since they've given up the 6th most sacks this season, but Geno's accuracy has just completely fallen off a cliff. Like, the guy used to be a top 10 finisher and completion rate above expected 3 straight years, 2022 through 24, and now he's sitting 24th. That's not regression, that's just a collapse. But you can blame some of it on young, unpolished receivers, but most of it is just Geno missing throws like it's his side hobby. The good news is he gets the Titans this week, and their defense has been the cure for struggling quarterbacks, ranking 25th against the pass and 27th in sack rate. Brock Bowers should stay sidelined, but Michael Mayer should be back and give Geno a solid safety valve. I think both teams move the ball pretty well here, which means Vegas should be throwing plenty. He's startable in 2 QB leagues. So Daniel Jones shall now be called Indiana Jones. Unless he turns back into a pumpkin, then we'll rethink this. So that will not be happening this week, as he gets a reeling Arizona team that just collapsed multiple times in every way imaginable to lose last week to the dreadful Titans. The Cardinals have done well against the run, but have allowed the 5th most passing yards in the NFL. Like, check this image out. Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold are now the leaders in QBR through 5 weeks. If you had bet that before the season that they would be the top 2, you would have probably be a millionaire by now. Like, what world are we living in? This is an alternate dimension that I didn't know existed, but it does, and DJ looks good. He even adds some value with his legs. He already has 3 rushing touchdowns. One of Arizona's top corners, Garrett Williams, is still on IR, and 2 of the other starters are listed as questionable at this point. Like, Indy's just going to keep this train rolling. He's one of the best streamers this week. I would play him above Justin Fields and Jared Goff. On to the Week 6 QB busts. Justin Fields had QB 4 and 7 performances the last 2 weeks, but those came against 2 defenses that give up yards like it's a hobby, and Dallas and Miami. He now gets a serious D in Denver, who leads the league in sack percentage by a country mile. I haven't said that in a while. That's my Central Texas showing. Fields has always held the ball too long, and he made the Cowboys' defensive line look basically like prime Micah Parsons with 5 sacks last week. They also allow the 3rd least rushing yards to QBs, along with the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain, shadowing his only real credible passing threat in Garrett Wilson. Like, check out this image from @Michael_Nanya. He shows adjusted EPA per play to account for when the team is actually still in the game. Like, basically this throws out garbage time stats. He ranks 27th at .008 EPA per play. I expect him to be even lower than that after this game. All right, one more bust QB for the week, Kyler Murray. I know I've already gone over Murray in the fantasy graveyard, but I'm just going to pile on here. He's currently not practicing because of a foot injury, so if he does play, that means it could be less scrambling for the little guy. They're going up against Indy, and what's mostly been talked about this year has been the surprising start of Indiana Jones, but quietly, their defense is now 5th in EPA per play. They've only allowed 15.9 points per game to QBs, and Kyler hasn't finished above QB 16 in any game this season. Their offensive line has been abysmal. They've allowed the 9th highest sack percentage. The Colts D-line should have a field day. You can find a better start in 1 QB leagues. Right, let's do some running back booms, starting with Bill Krosky-Merritt. Dude just has juice. He's a very fast man that just makes good decisions with the ball. Like, Washington is very gradually handing the backfield to him. He had a season-high 47% of snaps last week. He's literally first at an absurd 2.17 rushing yards over expected per attempt. Like, here's an image from @RyanJ_Heath. I think I use something from him every podcast, so please go follow him. But this graph shows stuff percentage along with explosive run percentage. Bill is literally the best in stuff percentage and second best in explosive run percentage, just like in a stratosphere of his own. Like, they have to push out the graph for his name to even show up. So this isn't a fluke. This drumbeat has been going since he stepped on the field in minicamp. He's on a good offense and is clearly the best option they have at RB. Now he gets Chicago and a very nice 49.5 over-under game. The Bears have given up the 9th most rushing yards, and the game script should be perfect for Bill with the Commanders' 4.5-point favorites. He's already a locked and loaded every week RB2, but look out if they start giving him more passing work. So do you realize that J.K. Dobbins is only 26 years old? He's 2 years older than Bill Krosky-Merritt. Like, he's still in his prime, and he's legitimately been one of the best pure runners in the game this year. He's had a ridiculous number of lower body injuries in his career. Like at this point, I just think of his knees as like a well done croissant. Like when you smash it and the pieces just flake off and it's basically hollow in the middle. Like that's the imagery that goes through my mind. But I mean, he's all the way back this year. This isn't even a plotter veteran that's eventually going to lose snaps to the rookie RJ Harvey. He's averaged 5.2 yards per carry, and he's tied for 5th in rushing yards over expected at 1.28 per carry. He gets the Jets' embarrassing defense that just got buzzsawed by Javonte Williams for 135 yards. The Broncos should be up early, and Dobbins will be the hammer in the second half. And now for the running backs who will turn your Sunday beer into prune juice. Derrick Henry has been making owners pull their hair out the last 4 weeks with finishes of RB 59, 22, 42, and 25. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but he's running into a brick wall again this week. Lamar Jackson looks to be out again, so Dallas Cowboys legend Cooper Rush should be starting again. He is very limited as a player, to put it kindly, and was putrid last week with 179 yards passing and 3 interceptions. Like, this was against one of the best secondaries in the NFL in Houston, and he now gets a nasty defensive line in the LA Rams. I don't foresee this going much better, as the Ravens are 7.5-point dogs, and the Rams are a better run defense than the Texans. Like, Henry's had 11, 13, 11, and 16 touches in their losses the last 4 games, while playing a little over 50% of snaps. The game script isn't going his way, and it shouldn't again this week versus the Rams. The defense is decimated, so Stafford should have his way with them, and they'll be in catch-up mode with Justice Hill working in entirely too much. He's a low-end RB2, and I wouldn't blame you for sitting him this week. So Alvin Kamara is teetering on fantasy irrelevance going into this matchup against New England. Like, Kendre Miller is breathing down his back. He now has a mysterious injury pop up midweek. Taysom Hill is again doing Taysom Hill things to ruin everybody's week. And there's been smoke about a potential trade to a contender. Like, his snap rate has gone down from 86% in week 2 to just 56% this past week. Most of it has to do with an emerging Miller who had 10 carries to Kamara's 8. There's also been signs of wearing down in his game. The last time Kamara had a positive rushing yards over expected was 2020, when Dalvin Cook and Ronald Jones were also top 8 in the metric. He's just not as explosive or efficient as he used to be. So it makes sense with their playoff prospects at 1-4 to start seeing what they have in Miller and possibly even Devin Neal. Now, he has an ankle injury and is going against a stout New England front 7. Like, you could sell low on him or cross your fingers that he's traded to a contender. If you're still listening, congratulations. You have taste. Prove it with a 5-star review. Pretty please. All right, it's time to crack open another scroll from the booze realm. Here's a 4-star review from Taiwan. It's a rough translation, very rough, but it makes it more hilarious, so I'm sticking with it. You can feel the flavor of yeast in your mouth as soon as you eat it. There will even be a feeling of nasal discharge, and when it appears in the nasal cavity, it will have a kind of fruity aroma. The main flavor is in the middle of the front. There is no smell at the end, but it will only take about 5 to 10 seconds for the bitterness to go from the back to the front, but not much. There's a lot to break down on this one. It doesn't sound like this person ever actually drank the beer. It sounds like they ate it or maybe just snorted the foam. Like, I love how the tasting notes casually go from fruity aroma to nose goo. Like, that's a normal thing. This woman gave a beer 4 stars that hit her sinuses so hard that she's gonna need a neti pot. The bitterness moves from back to front in 5 to 10 seconds. So basically, this beer has a built-in countdown to regret. They have some strange standards in Taiwan. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Like how some people swirl wine, they just snort beer foam. I don't know. Okay, well, let's forge ahead to the receivers I like betting on in week 6. Michael Pittman has surpassed all expectations this year, like already coming down with 4 touchdowns, and he's tied for 15th in points per game at 12.9. All the hype so far has been about Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor, and rightly so, but Pittman still leads this team with a 23.3% target share and a third of the red zone targets this year. He's the chain mover on the team, the technician who gets the first read targets on RPOs. They are up against the Cardinals, who like to live in too high, where Pittman thrives. They're also 4th in EPA versus the run. Like, Taylor should still be able to eat because he's a dog, but this probably isn't the 150-yard, 3-touchdown game for him. Like, Indy is 7.5-point favorites. So you're hoping the Cardinals can score a bit to keep this a close game, but Pittman is going to be solid no matter what. So this dude is a pretty deep sleeper, but if you're stuck between bye weeks and injuries, you could do worse than rolling with Troy Franklin this week. He's living at around a 60% snap share, over 19% of targets, and a hefty 37.5 red zone target share. Sauce Gardner should shadow Courtland Sutton for most of the game, which leaves Brandon Stevens for Franklin. Stevens has allowed a 129.9 passer rating on the year. It's like free money. The Jets have stubbornly kept up their single high man coverage looks, and Franklin has just done work against single high. He's an overlooked flex play this week with a high chance to reach the end zone. So I told you all about how stinky Justin Fields' prospects are this week. That dookie trickles down to Garrett Wilson this week also. He should get a heavy dose of the superhuman Patrick Surtain, and Fields will get a heavy dose of just dudes in his face and bad sacks. Like, Surtain has been his usual dominant self this year, holding A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley, Quentin Johnston, and Jamar Chase to 0 touchdowns, and only Johnston has had more than 40 yards in his coverage. But Johnston has Justin Herbert. Wilson has Justin Fields. Those are different Justins. So most analysts will say you probably have to start him if you have him. I stand against that. I think you can play as Steph Diggs, Michael Pittman, or Teteroa McMillan over him this week and feel good about it. So I know there's a little optimism about the Bengals now that they traded for Joe Flacco, but T. Higgins should stay rotting on your bench this week. So look at this image from @BenBBaldwin. Flacco is moving from the Browns, who have the second worst pass blocking unit in the NFL, to the worst pass blocking unit in the NFL. Also the worst in run blocking. He's just a sitting Joe back there, a statue of the highest degree in Green Bay against a defense that has Micah Parsons. He goes there on a short week and has to learn the playbook in just a few days. Do you think they're going to do some crazy, awesome motion plays or have some trick plays near the end zone to score? No. They're going to have to run the most bland playbook ever and still won't be able to run the ball to save their lives. Higgins should get a whole heaping of Keyshawn Nixon, who's been a revelation in Green Bay this year. The game plan is most likely to throw to Jamar Chase or check it down to Chase Brown. Let Flacco at least learn the playbook and play a bad defense before putting T in your lineup. All right, I only do one boom tight end every week because the position is stupid. So David Njoku sprang to life last week with Dylan Gabriel under center. He had his highest snap share of the season at 96% and a team-high 9 targets. With Cedric Tillman on IR, it's probably Njoku is second option in the passing attack. I expect it to be a tight game in Pittsburgh this week, and they've allowed the 6th most points to tight end on the season. He's the best streamer on the week, and just a nice play as a low-end tight end 1. Darren Waller has been a fun reclamation project in fantasy the last couple of weeks, but that could hit a little speed bump this week. It's such a fragile archetype. Let's just zoom out on this whole thing. He's 33 years old. He took the entire year off in 2024. He has a history of soft tissue injuries and just came back from an injury that kept him out until week 4. He now goes up against a Chargers defense that gives up the 5th least points to tight ends at 8.5 this season. They're 8th in EPA versus the pass. This is a sell-high situation before he gets hurt again, and his prospects for this week don't look very good either. Okay, so I hope you got something useful out of this Love 'em or Leave 'em Week 6 breakdown. I'll do one more sip of this Westmalle Trappist Tripel and make my conclusion. So this one was a little disappointing. I don't think it hid the booze well enough. Like, the more I drank, the more it just kept being too much in my mouth. It wasn't a horrible experience, but I'm a tad disappointed in these monks. I think it goes 13th on the big beer board, right in front of the Weltenberger Kloster Anno 1050. The final pour score for this holy water is too blessed to be balanced. But that's going to do it for this episode of Tap Into Fantasy. If you liked what you heard, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the show find other degenerates like you. Hit me up on X at LG_fantasy or email at tapintofantasy@gmail.com with any start-sit questions you have. Thanks for tapping in, and until next time, happy pours, happy scores.